been numerous reports that commanders told their units that the Iran war is part of God's divine plan as outlined in the book of Revelation. I wish I was kidding or exaggerating, but I am not. This is a shocking new report by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, and it gives us a glimpse into what we wish was an isolated incident. However, there are just too many reports to ignore this. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation is a watchdog group that keeps an eye on religious extremism within the U.S. military. This is from their website. MRFF inundated with complaints of gleeful commanders telling troops Iran war is part of God's divine plan to usher in the return of Jesus Christ. The return of Jesus Christ, people. This morning, our commander opened up the combat readiness status briefing by urging us to not be afraid as to what is happening with our combat operations in Iran right now. He urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan, and he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. He said that President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. MRFF active duty NCO client writing on behalf of himself and 15 other unit members. Look, Jesus isn't coming back. You can destroy the Middle East and it still is not happening. And if something did come back and say it was Jesus, I wouldn't trust it. Do you remember that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where this alien read about these people's myths, and that alien pretended to be their devil and then tried to hold them to some ancient contract? Basically, she was able to trick this whole people into believing she was this mythical creature through holograms and parlor tricks. Luckily, Jean-Luc Picard saw right through her. If Jesus does come back, it would be some kind of Christian Project Bluebeam-like thing. No. Now, I wish this were an isolated incident, but the report explicitly states MRFF has received over 200 calls from more than 50 military installations across all services since Saturday, reporting similar disturbing pronouncements from their Christian zealot commanders. 50 military installations is a lot, and that's just what was reported. It could be more. Now, this is a report from Jonathan Larson's Substack, and he covers the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. From Saturday morning through Monday night, more than 110 similar complaints about commanders in every branch of the military had been logged by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, MRFF. So no branch is safe here. I don't understand how the Air Force is going along with this. Like, how do you understand radar systems and you're still going along with a 2,000-year-old book of superstitions? The cognitive dissonance here is insane. It's insane. Larson continues. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has enshrined evangelical Christianity at the uppermost levels of the U.S. military, airing monthly prayer meetings throughout the Pentagon. Last year, the Pentagon confirmed to me that Hegseth attends a weekly White House Bible study. It's led by a preacher who says God commands America to support Israel. Monday's email from the NCO said that their commander's remarks destroy morale and unit cohesion and are in violation of the oaths we swore to support the Constitution. That would be the First Amendment to the Constitution, not some obscure addendum somewhere. The very first rule, the separation of church and state. I am not a fan of the Ayatollah or the government of Iran. They are cruel, and they just slaughtered many thousand of their own people just a few months ago. I'm not going to shed a tear for them. However, I think we can all agree that this is completely out of line. It's inappropriate for our military to believe that they are an instrument of God for so many reasons, and to share that publicly. I mean, that's basically theocracy light, which is the problem with the Iran regime. Of course, we're nowhere near as extreme, but it's a slippery slope. Larson continues. MRFF president and founder Mikey Weinstein, a veteran of the Air Force and the Reagan White House, told me that Since the US and Israel attacked Iran early Saturday morning, the MRFF has been inundated with similar complaints. These calls have one damn thing in freaking common. Our MRFF clients, service members who seek MRFF aid, report the unrestricted euphoria of their commanders and command change as to how this new biblically sanctioned war is clearly the undeniable sign of the expeditious approach of the fundamentalist Christian end times, as vividly described in the New Testament book of Revelation. Many of their commanders are especially delighted with how graphic this battle will be, zeroing in on how bloody all of this must become in order to fulfill and be 100% accordance with fundamentalist Christians' end of the world eschatology. End of the world eschatology. This isn't the first times they get complaints like this. They pop up every time there's a military intervention with Israel. Remember that many evangelicals believe that the Jews must be in control of the state of Israel for the Battle of Armageddon. And when the Jews are in peril, Jesus will come down, defeat the Antichrist, and establish his 1,000-year reign. Okay. I don't have a problem with the state of Israel either. I don't. You do you do it over there, please. But this stuff is weird. There's too much apocalyptic rhetoric coming from people in power recently. Between this and Peter Thiel, his Antichrist obsession, I feel like the apocalypse might be a self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy happens when the belief in an outcome causes actions that lead to that outcome. Also, to our so-called protectors, what about the rest of us over here? It doesn't work out well for the rest of us in the apocalypse unless you're one of the lucky 144,000, which I am probably not. It's plague and it's fire and it's death for the rest of us. And hunger too. There's also hunger. But you got to get those birth rates up, right? Did you see this meme? I can relate to this meme so much, right? As a tax-paying American, I would like to see this squashed immediately. Larson ends on this note. While the MRFF historically has been able to get the Pentagon to swat down Christian incursions into the military, the Trump administration is openly disdainful of military norms and laws. It remains to be seen whether and how wholesale Christianization of the Iran war will be opposed by officials inside the Pentagon or political and legal advocates for secular values outside of it. Unfortunately, for those of us who won't make the 144,000 cut, and really don't want to be involved in this, there is a lot of potential for Armageddon now. We discussed this on my weekly Patreon podcast, so I'm not going to go into too many details here. However, this past week has been terrifying. So between the Anthropic Hegseth beef, where Anthropic basically said they don't want their tech to mass surveil Americans or for the AI to be able to independently carry out lethal strikes, and Hegseth said, no, that's exactly what we want to use it for. And then also the Chinese developing a new SARS virus with 100% mortality rate. Our elites might actually get their apocalypse. Remember we ended last week's video on Epstein with how these major events happen every 2 years, and that was just too fast? Well, this past week, there's been two major news stories, Anthropic and the Iran war, that would have dominated headlines for months 20 years ago. Now we're just moving past the Anthropic OpenAI story and just forget about Epstein. Forget about Epstein. That was so last month. Political scientists actually have a name for this. It's called the issue attention cycle. A huge crisis appears, everyone panics, and then the public suddenly moves on. The difference now is that the cycle is compressed so much that we are experiencing 3, 4 of them at the same time. But what we do have is this overwhelming anxiety, like a dark cloud hanging over all of our lives, while we still have to go to work and pay taxes. Also, I don't want to hear a damn thing about the low birth rates until the narcissistic sociopaths that run our country stop flirting with Armageddon. It's bad enough that AI is taking all the jobs. Now we've got military leaders wishing that the whole world would end. Just forget about it. Forget about all that. I don't want to hear about the birth rates, sorry. But you let me know what you think. Did you figure this would happen when Hegseth was appointed, or does this come as a shock to you? Do you think Trump is an instrument of God? Or are you going to get raptured so you're not even bothered by any of this? Let me know. I'll see you next week.